Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all very much for attending today's webinar, an intro to ZipForms 101. Just real quickly, just to tell you a little bit about who I am, my name's Anthony. I work here at the Orange County Association of Realtors. Been here now coming up on 15 years. Started off in the MLS department, so I know guaranteed I'll speak to all of you at some point in time regarding rules, regulations, violations, things like that. What I'm also involved with at the association is our outreach program. Our outreach program is designed to give you various training on your tools and products. So not only do I train on MLS, how to run searches, add and modify listings, create CMAs, all that fun stuff, but I also train on the tablet devices, like the iPad and tablet devices to make you the 21st century agent. And what we're going to go over today, ZipForms. Today we're going to go over some of the basic new tools on the new version of ZipForms that you may be experiencing, or for those of you who are veterans in the business or seasoned agents in the business and you're still using the current version of ZipForms, to show you what the new version of ZipForms will look like and act like that you can utilize now, seeing how they're updating that version. Do I have anybody that hasn't even logged into ZipForms ever? So let's get into ZipForms. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into www.car.org. This is their state website. ZipForms is a state-provided benefit for all CAR members. This is what your CAR dues pay for each and every year. It gives you the right to not only access your contracts electronically using ZipForms, but you being a member of CAR, you'll also have access to other tools and benefits like the CAR hotline, ask questions to real estate attorneys, get free legal advice. You'll also have access to benefits, classes, and designations that you can take to better yourself as an agent. Now, from here, on CAR's website, what we're going to do is we're going to log into ZipForms by simply coming over to where it says Access ZipForms, Access Now. Now, if you're a brand new agent in the business and you haven't been to CAR's website to register yourself as a user, very simply, you're going to come over to the top right corner, click on Sign In. From here, over to the right where it says New to CAR, ? You're going to click on Register. When you click on Register, you're going to scroll down and you're going to input your NRDS number. Now, your NRDS number stands for your National Real Estate Data Systems number. We here at Orange County and abroad refer to this number as your NERDS number. Your NRDS number is referred to as NERDS. We issue you that number when you join the association. Now, because you're a nerd, and I remember back in the day it wasn't cool to be a nerd, but today us nerds rule the world. And every realtor that everybody knows here today or gets to see online today is a nerd. Nerds rule the world, and we are all nerds in this business. So with that NRDS number, because you're an Orange County member, that number should begin with 2055. Then followed by another 4 numbers that we issue to you. So don't confuse this with your CalBRE license number. Once you input that NERDS ID number, then put in your legal last name, if I can spell my last name correctly, and then you'll hit Submit. When you hit Submit, you're then going to be asked to create your own unique username and password for CAR's website. This can be the same as your CRMLS username and password, but we have to remember that there are over 250,000 agents part of CAR. So you may have to actually come up with something unique. Now, I will say that in CAR's username and password, they do recognize capital letters and numbers, whereas CRMLS's login for MLS, it doesn't matter if the letters are capitalized or not. Here with CAR, it does. If you make a capital letter, or if you make your username or your password with capital letters, you got to remember that. You got to input that in each and every time. So once you create that username and password and you hit Submit after you choose what association you're with, you're going to agree to the terms of usage for ZipForms as well as CAR's website, and you will have been told that you have officially created your account. After you create your account, anytime you come to CAR's website, just simply come to where it says Access ZipForms and click on Access Now. From here, you're going to input your username and password that you created. And now when you hit sign in, you'll now wait for the advertisement to go through and click continue for you to be logged into ZipForms. Now, if you're a brand new member into ZipForms today, the only version of ZipForms that you'll be accessing is the brand new version that we are going to go over today. If I have the seasoned agents here attending our class today, then what you may log into is the current version. The current version of ZipForms will look like this, and I'll probably have to revert back to what it looks like. And it looks like it's starting up the new version for me, which is good. But at the top here, I'm going to go back to the classic ZipForms Plus. So if I have any agents that are currently logging into ZipForms, this is what you're looking at. Now at this point, I will say that you want to start moving over to the new version of ZipForms, and how you get to the new version of ZipForms is at the top right side here, and click on this big blue, red button that says Try New Plus. Reason why you want to start using the new version of ZipForms now is that in the next couple of weeks, this current version is going to go away. All your transactions that you currently have here are automatically in the new version, so you're not going to lose anything. Same with your templates. Everything is going to be in your new version. So I will say from now on, be in the new version. So we're going to click on Try the New Plus. Any brand new agents to the business will only have access to the new version of ZipForms Plus. Right away, we get to see that the new version of ZipForms is vastly different than the current version. Okay? Here, instead of being defaulted into my transaction list first, I am now defaulted into my dashboard. Now the dashboard I really like a lot because we can get to do and see a lot of things super quickly. As an example, under the recent activity, the last time that you were logged into ZipForms, what you last did in what transaction. Okay, so it basically just gives you a nice friendly reminder of when you were last logged in and what transactions you modified or edited. Okay, the second is that here over to the right hand side, you have potential sales volume. Potential sales volume are all your current active transactions that you're currently working on, whether it's a for sale, for lease, purchase, or listing. Any transaction that you create, those are all considered potential sales. So at this point, we can see that I am currently working on about $750,000 worth of sales. Okay. Now, at this point, one of the things that we want to do or look at is there are pending transactions. Pending transactions are when you go into escrow, you're waiting for escrow to close. In ZipForms, there is a feature for you to change the status of the transaction. Now, unfortunately, the status of the transaction does not affect the MLS, but what ZipForms is encouraging you to do is change the statuses of your transactions. So when you go into escrow, you change the status to the transaction to say pending or backup, and now that will be potential income that you have in escrow. And of course, if we're getting ready to close escrow or we close escrow, we change that transaction to closed. Now we can also track our closed transactions. So for the year, we can see how much or how successful or how much money we've actually closed out for the year. Now, right next to this, the most important one or one of the important ones is fell through. That means that if a transaction was canceled or it was withdrawn or whatever, or expired, that's income lost. Now, I know when I showed this one here that a lot of agents tend to get a little defensive and go, I don't want to see how much money I've lost. But let's use that positive or that negative as a positive. Maybe you need to evaluate what you've been doing for the year. So you get to see what you are currently working on, how much money you've got in escrow, how much you successfully closed. But here, if you notice that you've lost more than you've closed, what are you probably going to need to do? And by the way, the answer is not, I'm going to quit the business. The answer here would be, I need to reevaluate my business model. I need to start closing more successfully than letting things fall through. So in a way, this will be a nice transaction management system to see what your productivity has been like for the year. So this is a great tool for you here at the dashboard. Now, from the dashboard, I can create a transaction just from the dashboard. I can also manage any pre-existing transaction that I've created just from the dashboard, or I can immediately go to the forms area to make a transaction from the dashboard. So I don't necessarily, in this case, in the new version of ZipForms, have to click on the Transactions tab to create my transactions or modify them. I can do that all from the dashboard area. Okay. Now, before we go over to the Transactions area, I do want to point out one thing here in ZipForms, and that is at the upper right-hand side. You'll notice that over in the upper right-hand corner, there is a photo of myself. Now, in ZipForms, you can customize your ZipForms to a degree, and one of those customizations is uploading a photo of yourself. Why would I ever need to upload a photo? Well, what's nice about uploading a photo of yourself is that anytime you send out something from a transaction, whether it be a direct email from the transaction within ZipForms or a digital signature request, this photo will go out to your clients. To add a photo of yourself, just simply click on where the photo area is, and from here you can click where it says Change. When you click on Change, you're going to browse your computer for a photo of yourself and upload it. Now, please make sure it's a current photo of yourself, because again, this photo does go out to all of your clients. Before we leave the photo screen, we can also update our profile. Here in our profile section, when we click on View Profile, down below here, we can create an email signature. The email signature is how we want our emails to end from ZipForms. So if we do email contracts or we do send out a digital signature request, we now have a nice email signature that we can create or that we have created. So less typing you have to worry about doing. If you're formal to your clients, maybe you put in your salutation like sincerely, gratefully, thankfully, wholeheartedly, followed by your name, your company, your address, your Calgary license number, so on and so forth. Okay? Or maybe you create an email signature because every client is a best friend, later guy, later dude, talk to you soon. Whatever you want. Anything that you modify under your information or under your email signature at the very top, click Save. Now, there is one other thing under the profile section that we are going to take a look at, and that is the settings. Here under the settings tab, very first option that we're given is that we can change our e-signature option. Our e-signature option is all defaulted into Digital Ink. Digital Ink is one of your free member benefits offered to you by CAR, but those of you attending today's class may like to use DocuSign. And instead of you saving the contracts onto your computer where you upload them into DocuSign's system, instead what you can do is select your DocuSign choice and link your DocuSign account with ZipForms. Now everything is merged together, so you don't have to worry about exporting any of your documents onto your computer to only upload them into DocuSign. Once you choose this and you hit save, you have now chosen DocuSign as your preferred digital signature option. But most of us will be able to use Digital Ink, or all of us can, because this is your free member benefit. Given some time today, I'll go over fairly quickly how to set up documents to be sent out through digital signing. Okay? Now, a couple of the other settings here super quickly. If we scroll down a little bit, some of you may not want that dashboard to be displayed. Down below here, select the box that says make your transaction list your default landing page. So anytime you go into ZipForms, your transactions will always appear. Okay? And then the other option, set up your auto save. Click on the down arrow. It's typically in the off position. We've all had this happen where we're at the crucial stage of writing up our contracts and then our computer dies and you've lost all your work. Set the autosave. If you click on the down arrow, you can set your autosave to every 15 minutes, 20, 25, 30, or every hour. I personally recommend every 15 minutes. That way, in case your computer crashes, you haven't lost more than 15 minutes worth of work. After you set up your interval of the autosave, at least, come up to the top, click Save, and save your options. Back at the Transactions tab. Here at the Transactions tab, here's a list of all my pre-created transactions. For those of you who don't know how to create a transaction, we'll go over how to do that today. But very simply, there are two ways of creating a transaction in ZipForms. Actually, technically three. The first is from the dashboard section where we can click on Create a New Transaction. The second, under the Transactions tab, is the New button. If I click on the New button, what's different here is that I now get to pick and choose first, what type of transaction am I making? Am I creating a new listing for sale? Am I creating a new offer for sale? Am I creating a new lease for a tenant to make an offer on a lease? Or am I creating a new lease listing to list? Pick what type of transaction you're going to create. When you click on it, now you're going to name the transaction. I'm now going to select the transaction type. Now, one of the nice new features here, or one of the current features from the current version to the new, is that we can upload a picture to make this transaction stand out. I know that each and every one of us try to create a unique name for a transaction, like maybe a client's name or a property address or a combination of the two. But what happens if I'm working with one client that's made 15 offers on 15 different properties? Those are 15 different transactions. And I know typically, or what happens periodically, is that sometimes you accidentally go into the wrong transaction by mistake. Well, with the Add Image feature, you can now make the transaction stand out visually. Add a photo. The photo can be whatever you want. It can be of the property, it can be of your client, it can be of the dog, the cat, the flower bed, whatever. The only thing I ask is that make sure it's an appropriate photo, because like your profile picture, this photo will go out anytime you send out a request from the transaction, whether it be a digital signature request or an email to the client from ZipForms. So make sure it's an appropriate photo. There is one added new feature in the creating the transaction itself, and that is this button here, and it's called MLS Connect. Now, MLS Connect has been around for a couple of years, and that was a separate button, or still is a separate button within ZipForms to allow you to import another listing directly onto your contracts. So if you're representing a buyer, whereby you have to type up everything, you can instead click on MLS Connect and import that listing data directly onto your contracts. Okay? So they've now done it, or added a button here for you to be able to import the listing from the MLS onto your offers. If you're representing a seller, this is not such a great tool to use, because technically at the moment you have no signed listing agreement, so technically you have no listing in the MLS to import. And if you were to import another agent's listing onto your listing contracts, you're going to have to retype over a majority of all that listing information anyway, because the listing agent comes over. Well, you're the listing agent, so you're going to have to take out that listing agent's information to put yours on. Really, this tool is not such a great tool for someone representing a seller, but this is a great tool if you're representing a buyer. From here, at this point, if I wanted this transaction created, named it, choose the transaction type, I hit save. Now when I hit save, I've officially created the transaction. Now I could go to the Forms button, and now come over to where it says All Forms and start adding forms into the transaction. The third method of creating a transaction within ZipForms is found under the TXN or Transaction Tools. If I click on the Transaction Tools, to create another transaction within ZipForms, I'm going to use Forms Advisor. Now, Forms Advisor was created by CAR Legal, and what this allows you to do is answer a set of legal questions, most of which are yes or no answers, and based on your answers, we'll compile a list of forms required for the transaction. So this is a great tool for those of you who are brand new to the business and not sure exactly what forms you need. seasoned agents in the webinar, this is still a great tool for you because maybe you've come across a weird transaction you've never dealt with before. So, and based on those answers, you can create a transaction in less than 10 minutes. Here, I'll show you. So I'm going to use myself as an example. Maybe I'm a real estate agent. I've been working in the business for about 15 years, but in my business model, all I deal with is buying and selling properties. And in reaching out to my sphere of influence, my past clients, one of my past clients calls me back and says, "Hey, Tony, I want to list my home, but I don't want to sell it. I want to start leasing it out. I need to use it for passive income." Well, wait a minute. I've never dealt with a lease before. Maybe my friends, my colleagues who helped get me into the business, all they deal with is buying and selling properties too. Maybe my broker, my office manager are just out of town. Maybe they're on vacation or whatever. Do I want to pass my hard-earned client that I've spent money on to retain and give them to somebody else that may be a leasing expert? Probably not, right? Because it's all about customer service. So what I'm going to do is come here into my transactions list, click on the transaction tools, and now I'm going to click on Forms Advisor. When I click on Forms Advisor opens up. First thing over here to the left, what type of transaction are we dealing with? Are we dealing with a purchase of a property? Are we dealing with a lease of the property? Or are we dealing with something else? Well, I'm dealing with a lease of a home. When I click on the lease, am I dealing with the listing side, the leasing side, or property management? Well, I'm going to be listing this property. When I do that, now I'm just going to go through these tabs and answer the questions. Very simply, if there's an answer that's got multiple choices, click on the down arrow and select the necessary choice. If I need to switch an answer from yes to no or no to yes, simply click on the answer. Once I'm done with the first tab, hit accept and go right on through. Now, I'm going through this super quickly, but you're going to go through this a little bit slower. You're going to read all your questions and answer them as best you can, because you're going to ask yourself at some point, how would I ever know the answer to this question? Well, just remember, these are lawyers asking you these questions. And if you guys have ever watched any lawyer program, whether it was on Court TV or CSI or whatever, that sometimes these lawyers ask you some of the most off-the-wall questions. Answer them as best you can, because the more accurate you are with your answers, the more accurate the system will be in giving you the necessary forms required. So, once you're done with the last set of questions, here at the summary gives you a chance to review all your questions, all your answers. If you agree with everything here, you're going to hit I accept. When you do that, you're going to name your session. At this point, when we say OK, and what's nice about naming that session is that at any given time, if I ever need to come back, or if I have the same situation ever again, instead of re-answering all the questions, I could just go over to the file list, reference this session to grab the exact same forms. Now, once I create the session, here we go. It analyzes my questions, my answers, and now it gives me a list of everything that I need. Starting from left to right, in green, the forms that are going to be used. Gives me the form number, gives me the form name. Now, what I love about Forms Advisor is it links you into 2 other free member benefits offered to you by CAR. The first is Forms Tutor. Now, Forms Tutor was created by CAR Legal to explain to you, the agent, how and why this form is used. This is good because you have to explain each and every line of that document to a signer, right? Well, how do you know how to explain that to a client if you've never read it before or you don't know anything about it? Here, if you click on the Forms Tutor should open up, and it should take you directly to the form. But in this case, just to show you a form, the form will open up just like so. And then you're going to see these nice little blue dots, depending on the form, at every page, every line, maybe every paragraph. Okay? So in this case, as an example, I'm opening up the RPA in Forms Tutor. And it may take it a second here. The form opens up, and now we see these nice little blue dots throughout the form. If I click on the blue dot, I now see a nice written explanation of that form, or of that page, of that line, of that paragraph. I know most of us here do not like to read. right? It's hard enough that you have to already read through the form. Now you got to read through this entire legal explanation about that form or of that paragraph. Well, let's make it easier on ourselves. Over here to the top left corner, we got the sideways triangle. That is a play button. If I click on the play button, I now hear an audio explanation of this form, of that line, of that paragraph. So this is a great tool for you to be able to click on what you need and learn about that form, which is kind of nice. Now, by the way, you can access Forms Tutor directly from CAR's website. If you go to car.org, move your mouse to where it says Transaction Center. Under the ZipForms tab, scroll down to where it says Forms Advisor, Forms Tutor. And from here, scroll down to Forms Tutor. And when you click on Access Forms Tutor, you can access from every form from A to Z. So here you can look at every form, just like we did. So this is a great learning tool to learn the legal aspects of your forms. The second member benefit that Forms Advisor links you to is the legal Q&A section at CAR's website. So questions asked by you, the agent, regarding this form for various situations and their responses to those questions. So now, with these two tools alone, you can now learn the full legal aspects of why that form is there. So now, if you know the legalities behind the form, and you know the questions and answers that come up that are asked by agents, now you can confidently explain why this form is being signed by your client, which is great. And then, of course, the last column here, preview, we can preview what the form looks like. If we love everything that we see here, we can now click on Create a New Transaction. We name the transaction. Now when we say OK, Forms Advisor is now creating the transaction within my ZipForms account, so I can now simply close out. And now when I click on my Transactions tab, there's the Donnie Trump lease for $928. Now when I click in this transaction, I can now go to the Forms area and now modify all the forms. So in a way, we created that transaction in less than 10 minutes. Are there any questions on Forms Advisor? So here we go into a transaction that we've created. Once we go into the transaction, it looks a little bit different now just because it defaults you into a summary of the transaction. This information will be filled in as you begin to fill in information on your forms, like the buyer or seller information, the listing agent or selling agent information, depending on the transaction, things like that. All right, going into this transaction super quickly to actually add forms into the transaction for me to edit, I'm going to come over to the gray bar here near the top, and I'm going to click on the third icon from the left, which is your Documents button. Here in your Documents button, this is where you're going to be able to look at all your forms within the transaction. As you can see right now, we have no forms added. To add a form into a transaction very easily, we come over to the top right to where it says All Forms. When we click on All Forms, here's a list of all 329 CAR forms for buying, selling, leasing properties in the state of California. To add a form into a transaction, simply click on the form from this list, and it adds it into the transaction. Most of us, when we start a transaction, only need about, 2 or 3 forms to get started. Do I want to go through 329 forms just for 2 or 3 forms? No. I need to find those forms super quickly and easily. Well, how we do this is at the very top. At the very top, underneath where it says Form, says Search for Form Name or Description. Here, if I click in the box, I can say type in the form number, like RPA. The moment I type in RPA, the forms list starts to automatically show you or give you all the forms that have either RPA as part of the number or part of the title of the form. Once I find the form that I need, I click on it and add it. Now, if I don't know the form number, but I know part of the form name, like, disclosure. Now the forms list sorts to give me every form that has the word disclosure as part of the title. And again, simply click on the form that you need and add it to the transaction. Once you've added the forms into your transaction, very quickly and easily, close out by clicking on the red X or clicking on the white box outside. And now I can click on the form and begin to edit the terms of the agreement. Now, before we go into this, let's go over a couple of your extra tools here super quickly. Right away, on our menu choices over to the far left, we can e-sign documents. This is how we begin to digitally sign our documents, either using DocuSign or Digital Ink from our earlier session. Share. The share button allows you to give access into the transaction for someone to view, save, and print documents from within the transaction. So if you have PDF documents or PDF files within the transaction, you could actually share those with other people, like another agent or your TC or your assistant or your lender, your title, your escrow, your broker, whoever. You're not limited. Just give them access to view, save, and print the necessary documents they need to continue with this transaction. MLS Connect. As I was talking about earlier, MLS Connect is a great tool for you to import MLS listing data directly onto your contracts. How we do that, we simply click on the MLS Connect button. When we do that, it defaults us to our MLS system. For all CRMLS users, this is a free tool offered to you by CAR. We come down below, we now need to select the property type, because when we type in the MLS number, if the MLS number, when we go to find it, doesn't match the property type, it's not going to find the listing in the MLS. So if we're representing a lease or a land lot or a mobile home, click on the down arrow and select the appropriate property type. Then, once you do that, come over to the MLS listing, ID number, and now type in the MLS number. So PW1717808 as an example. By the way, I can include the primary listing photo on my agreement or on my transaction. Don't worry, this is not being advertised, so I'm not using another agent's photo without their permission, because this is between me and my client. So this photo doesn't go out anywhere other than me and my client. At this point, now when I click Find, ZipForms will now connect up to CRMLS, and hopefully, knock on wood, we find the listing just like so. Now when I hit Save, I have now imported the MLS information onto my contracts. So when I go into a contract, as an example, the cover sheet, we can scroll down on the cover sheet. By the way, cover sheet's got my client information. First name, last name, email address of my clients. As an example. But now when I go down to page 2, so here we come down below, there's the property information all right here. So as a matter of fact, we'll probably get even more information than we normally would have in typing up the contracts, like MLS number, APN number, maybe the list price, list date, what the property includes and excludes if it's been typed in on the listing, along with me putting up my offer. We scroll down a little bit further, and here we've got the listing brokerage information, all nice and neatly typed in for us. So this is a great and easy tool for us to import our information onto our contracts. Besides MLS Connect, as I mentioned earlier, we can have PDF files added into this transaction. So in this case, I represent a buyer. We're writing up a purchase agreement. There are other documents my buyer needs to give to me for me to submit a formal offer to the listing agent, like proof of funds, earnest money deposit check, bank statement, letter from their lender saying what they're approved for, and maybe a letter from their parents saying that they're a great buyer, right? Got about 5 or 6 different documents. Well, with the Add Documents button, I can click on Add a Document, browse my computer for that document, wherever that document may be. And now when I say OK, a copy from my computer has now been uploaded as part of the transaction. If you upload a PDF document into the transaction, you can also get it digitally signed. You can all you have to do is just place the areas on this document for the signer to sign. That's all you got to do. So this is great for buying agents. This is great for selling agent or listing agents. So maybe I'm the listing agent. Maybe we go in and we add the offers in our transaction. Now, if we're adding in documents, we need to keep them organized. This is where the Add Folder feature comes in. Click on Add a Folder, and now we just name a folder. Client stuff. Now, when I say OK, a folder is created. Now I need to get this document into that folder. Simply hover over top of the document, click and hold with my mouse, drag it over top of the folder, and let go. Now I've moved that document into this folder. Okay? So this is a way of keeping everything organized. So maybe in this case, I represent my buyer. I add a folder called Client Stuff or Client Docs. Then I go into that folder, add their documents that way. Or maybe I represent the seller, and now I get offers from other agents. I'll create multiple folders. Offer 1, Offer 2, Offer 3, Offer 4. And each and every one of those folders will have the individual offers for that from that buying agent. So this is a great tool. These two are great tools for you to add in foreign documents. Okay. All right, let's go into a form. Going into a form, very simply, we click on the form that we want to modify and edit. From here, we've got several other tools that we can work with. Again, we've got e-sign towards the left. We've got MLS Connect to add in documents. The other one that we want to do is fast fill. Love fast fill. What fast fill does, and I notice here that there's the save button. Save button will appear anytime you modify anything in the contract. This used to be all the way over to the far right, but they just moved this the other day, and I want to say they moved it yesterday. So you got your manual save button. Okay, so we modify something in the contract, we can manually hit the save, or if I change something in the contract and I forget to hit the save, the moment I go into a different document, you'll notice that it automatically saved my work. So you've got the auto save, which saves every 15 minutes, and now you've got a manual save, and now you've got an auto save. Fast fill, love fast fill. What fast fill does is it takes out all this pre-written legal text and leaves in only the blank lines of the contract. So if I know the contract like the back of my hand and I want to fill it out super quickly, click on fast fill, take out all that pre-written legal text, and now we can just fill it in from top to bottom, just like so. Okay, so it's a great and easy tool to fill out your forms super quickly. Okay, NA, this is a great tool. You fill in your contracts. Say we fill here the offer, but do we fill in every line on this purchase agreement? Probably not, right? Most of agents that I know will leave a lot of this blank. To protect you and your client, after you fill in what you need to fill in on the contract, and instead of leaving all these extra lines of text blank, NA allows you to fill in what is called not applicable on all these blank lines. How we do that? Very simply, click on NA fill, say apply NA, and now anywhere that there can be typed text is automatically filled in with NA. So after we type up what we need to on the document, we come over to NA fill and fill out the rest of the document so that every line of text that doesn't have already text in it is now filled in with not applicable. So now someone can't try to commit fraud against you and your client. At any given time, you can rewrite over an individual line. Just simply click on the individual line and manually take out and retype in what you need. But in very few cases where you might have to retype over the contract entirely, instead of you going through every line, taking out NA instead, click on the NA fill again, and now hit remove, and that removes out all the instances of NA on this form. So it's a great protective tool or preventative tool from having somebody write something in without you knowing it. Okay. Preview the document as PDF. Spell check, that's an important one now. Highlight, love highlight. What the highlight does is it highlights the pre-written legal text. So if you need someone to really pay attention to make sure that they read something in the form before they sign it because it's a term that still needs to be negotiated, you can highlight it. Now, not everybody likes yellow. So click on the color, select the color that you like. From here, re-highlight or highlight over the area, and now click highlight again, and now you've highlighted the text. Now I can email this document out as a PDF to my client or to my broker. Please read the sections that are highlighted. Let me know if you have any questions, because we may have to write something else or different in the terms. Now they can read it. Broker answers my question. Now what I need to do is remove the highlight before we sign. How we do that: select the color that we're about to remove, re-highlight over the area, click highlight again, and that removes it automatically. I call this a drafting tool. Most people's printers are black and white. Even on that light pink color, this would show up as jet black. So in a way, it will black out those areas of the form. Now, the last thing you as an agent would want is to have a client sign a form with areas of the form blacked out. That will not make for pleasant conversation between you and your broker. Even on a color printer, as an example, this light pink actually on a color printer hides all the black lettering as well. So it's like blacking it out. So I would say before you print it, to get it signed, remove all the highlight areas in your contract. That way it's a crisp, clean, easy to read contract after you print it. All right, one last button that we'll go over today: photos. Love the photos tool. The photos tool allows you to upload photos to your contracts. This is a great tool for forms such as the Avid. For those of you who don't know what an Avid stands for, it stands for the Agent Visual Inspection Disclosure. Basically, this is your form that you need in order to walk around and visually inspect the defects of the property. Doesn't mean that you have to get in the attic or get underneath the house. Not that you have to get under the house yet here in California, but you have to walk around the house and notice any visual problems. Now, the one thing that I always hear from agents is, well, we have to be careful of what we say on the Avid. You're absolutely right. You can't say what type of stains are on the carpet or what type of cracks are in the wall, right? You can't say that's a big crack, small crack, or a medium-sized crack. All you can say is that there's a crack. But because you have your phone with you at all times, take a picture of it. Take that photo, put it onto your computer. And from there, you're going to upload it as part of your contract. So, as an example, here I've opened up an Avid, and maybe as I'm filling out the Avid, I'm going to make a note here on the entry that the rain gutters don't seem to drain anywhere. Now, I know if most of you agents saw something like this, you would probably think I was a crazy person, right? What do you mean the rain gutters don't drain anywhere? They got to drain somewhere, right? That's why they're on the house, you would think. But because I took a picture of that rain gutter at the entry, I'm going to now come over to the Photos tool. I'm going to click on Attach a Photo, and now I'm going to browse my computer for that photo. Once I find that photo, I'm now going to describe the photo. It's important that you describe it because you're going to have things link up here. So rain gutters above entry. Now when I say OK, a copy from the computer has now been uploaded and made as a reference on the contract. Now I can click on the reference, drag it to where it needs to go, and let go. Maybe I make another note that maybe in the dining room there is floor damage near the sliding glass door. Again, browse my photos, attach, find that photo, and describe it. Floor near sliding glass door in dining area. And again, when I say OK, the reference is added to the top of the document. I grab it, move it, and it now becomes photo number 2. I am not limited to the amount of photos that I add, but what happens is that when I either print or email as a PDF or send it out for digital signatures, these photos will be added as extra pages after the last page of the document. So when a client goes to digitally sign this or print to sign this, this is what they'll see. Here as the PDF document, they see page 1 of the Avid. Looks pretty normal to me, but when we get down to page 2, here at the entry, rain gutters don't seem to drain anywhere. There's reference to photo 1. Floor damage near the sliding glass door, reference to photo 2. Photo 3, photo 4, photo 75, photo 375 if you wanted. After you get past the last page of the agreement, as you see here, there will be an extra page added automatically. On that extra page, you notice that there's reference to photo 1. And now there is the photo of the rain gutters above the entry that don't seem to drain anywhere. So now when you see something like this, you can now take a picture of it and disclose it. Or, as we go down a little bit further, there's another page, photo 2, there's the floor damage near the sliding glass door in the dining area. Don't know what type of damage it is, but now I have properly disclosed it to my client for them to maybe evaluate and maybe think about doing an extra inspection. Are there any questions on this? That looked pretty neat. I will say that besides the Avid, this photo feature is probably good for 2 other forms. The other form that I think this is super good for is the RR, the repair request. You put together your repair request after an inspection. What's part of your inspection? The inspection report. What's in the inspection report? The photos. Ask your inspector to email you a copy of the photos. That way, when you're putting the repair request together and you're making references to what line items in the inspection report that your client wants repaired, you can now attach a photo next to that line item in the repair request. Now, in a way, you've helped the listing agent and the seller not have to look at a separate document to see what it is that needs to be repaired. It's all right there in front of them. The third form that this is super good for, besides the Avid and the RR, the MIMO, the move in, move out inspection. Basically, you do a MIMO with a brand new tenant. You now take photos. So now that, and attached to the MIMO, the tenant signs off. Now you got a before of what the property looks like as they move in. Now when they go to move, the tenant goes to move out, you go around with your brand new MIMO. You take brand new photos of the current conditions as they move out. Now there's a before and after. No longer can the tenant say, nope, this was always like this when I moved in. You can now show them visually on the MIMO that they've signed. By the way, and I'm going to show you this really cool, I'm going to preview this document one more time. On those photos that you uploaded to the contract, there's a date and timestamp of when you uploaded it to the contract. So hopefully when they sign off on this, the dates and the time that they sign off match up. This is another reason why we also describe the photo, so that you can show, how everything combines together. Are there any questions on this? All right, let's show you one last thing, and I'll let you guys go, and that is digitally signing contracts. Today what we're going to do, because this is an intro class, is we're going to show you how to set up contracts to be digitally signed, to email a signer the request to sign the document. So today it's all about the beginning of doing that. Very simply, as I mentioned earlier, you have choices between 2. You have DocuSign, Digital Ink. DocuSign is a third-party vendor. That third-party vendor, if you go to DocuSign.com, sure, Letras, sure, I can go over what a template. All right, let's go over a template quick. A template, just so you know, a template is a basic way of setting up forms that you constantly use for multiple transactions. A template will save you anywhere from 15 or 20 minutes per transaction. Basically, a template are a set of forms that you constantly use for multiple transactions. But instead of going into a transaction where you grab blank forms and fill out everything from scratch, in a template, on those forms you can have some generic information. Generic information for that type of client would probably be your name, your company, your copyright license, and of course some basic generic terms that you always try to negotiate for. And again, a template will save you anywhere from 15 or 20 minutes per transaction. How we create a template in ZipForms, we come over to the templates list. When I click onto the templates tab, here's a list of all my created templates, but if you don't have any templates, not a problem, this will be blank. To create a template, come over to the top left corner here and click on New. Like creating a new transaction, you're going to name it. What type of template would you like to create? Listing for sale, offer for sale, offer for a tenant, or a new lease for a landlord. Maybe I want to create a new template for a buyer. If I click on New Offer, now we're going to name it, but we're not going to name it client or property specific. We're going to name it something client generic. And what I mean by that, because we're creating a buyer's template, maybe I call the template buyer or purchase or standard sale purchase. Maybe I go as far as creating an REO purchase template or a short sale purchase template. If I'm creating a listing template, maybe I call it listing or seller or standard sale purchase or short sale purchase or REO purchase, whatever you need. So in this case, I'm going to name my template. Then I'm going to choose the template type. Now, by the way, where it says the auto apply, you're going to leave it at do not automatically apply this template. Reason why is that you want to be fully in charge of what templates that you've created get applied to what transactions. Here, you've got two other choices to automatically apply this template to every purchase, but maybe not every purchase is a standard sale purchase. Maybe one's in REO or probate. You're going to use different forms. And of course, most importantly, you don't want to automatically apply this template to every transaction, because what happens if you're representing a seller? You're not going to want your buyer's template added or your buyer's contracts added to a seller's template, a seller's transaction, right? So leave it at do not automatically apply. Once you name it, choose the property type and the auto apply as none or do not, hit save. Now, just like with a transaction, we go and grab the necessary forms that we need for this template. Those of you who are working at companies that give you a list of forms required for every transaction, use this search bar and grab the necessary forms for this template. Things like that. Now, once you add in those forms, now click on the forms and type in your generic terms. Again, you're not going to be worried about adding in a client's name or property address, but you will add in your information. Right? Your company, your name, maybe your Calgary license number, your email address, things like that. Okay? Maybe we go into these forms and we type in our generic terms, right? Our generic terms being, I don't know, how many days escrow do you shoot for? Do you shoot for 30-day escrow? Do you shoot for 45-day escrow? Do you for 365-day escrow? Who pays for what? Buyer or seller, right? Is this a loan? And things like that. Add those things in. Now, once you're done adding in your generic terms onto this template, now we're ready to apply that template to a transaction. So now when we go to create a new transaction and we name it and choose the transaction type, we'll now get a selection here called Select a Template. Click on the down arrow and now grab the template that you need. Now when I hit save, all those generic terms and all those forms are now added to this transaction. So now what do I need to do in this transaction? I need to type in the specifics of the transaction. The specifics being, at this point, client information, property information, maybe the offer, but you'll notice that some of this other information is already filled in. Maybe I go into the form and instead of maybe a 30-day escrow, they want a 45, or maybe instead of a loan, they want to offer all cash. I can switch all that around. All right, so let's get back into digital signing. As I was mentioning earlier, you have two choices, DocuSign Digital Ink. DocuSign, third-party vendor, charges you about $250 a year for unlimited signing using DocuSign. Digital Ink, because it's created by ZipLogix, and ZipLogix creates zip forms, you can sign unlimited transactions, unlimited amount of times for zero cost. Before you we are going to go over really quickly how to set up documents to be sent out for digital signing using Digital Ink. Reason why I like digital ink, one of the many reasons why I like digital ink, besides it being free, it is very user-friendly, just like DocuSign. You're going to hear a lot from a lot of other agents that DocuSign is the end-all and be-all of digital signing, and that was probably true about 8-9 years ago, because digital ink was not very user-friendly, and it was definitely not very customer-friendly. Today, that is not the case. Both systems are very easy to use, so it just really comes down to personal preference, okay? And of course, if you're like me, you're probably also on a tight budget. And I like to show you your free stuff where you can, when you can. Because when you're on a tight budget, you want to take advantage of your free stuff where you can, when you can. So, with that said, before we do any digital signing, whether it's DocuSign or digital ink, make sure that all parties involved in the transaction are okay with accepting digitally signed documents. Double check with your vendors, like your title, your escrow, your lenders. Make sure that they are okay with accepting digitally signed documents. Also, double check with your clients. Not every client is a technically advanced or technically tech-savvy client. So your clients may not want to do digital signatures. Okay? Doesn't mean that we don't want to work with them. Just means that we have to figure out other ways of getting their names on the contracts. One big indicator that they're probably not going to be tech savvy is if they don't have an email address. I've heard that many a time. Can I send this out to my clients for digital signing if they don't have an email address? And the answer to that is no. They have to have at least an email address. They don't know how to use email. You probably don't want them to digitally sign the contract. Now, besides you and besides your vendors and your clients, great opportunity to talk to the other agent on the other side of the transaction. A quick, simple yes, no, do you accept digitally signed contracts? Hopefully they've already double checked with all their vendors. They'll tell you a quick yes or no if they do or don't. So find that out ahead of time. But today in the perfect world, we're going to digitally sign contracts. How we do that? Very simply, be in the transaction. When we're in the transaction, move your mouse to where it says e-sign. By the way, everybody can practice this today. All you need to do, create a transaction, call it test. Grab at least one form. On that form, you must at least have a signer's name and a property address to do what we're about to do. From here, when you click on e-sign, after you save your work, this will take you to all your digital signing history for this transaction. Well, if this is a brand new transaction, there is no previous history here. So the only choice I have available is create a new signature packet. When I click create a new signature packet, the signing service is defaulted for me as digital ink. If you're a DocuSign user and you selected DocuSign as your default choice, your signing service will say DocuSign. From here, we're going to come down below and choose or select the documents from our transaction that we wish to sign. So click on the document. From there, when we click on the D icon, we're going to now select what forms or documents, whether it's a PDF document or a contract itself, to be digitally signed. When I select the document, I hit close. Here are the documents I've selected. I'm now going to come over to the top right and click next. Now I need to select my signers. Select the parties. Come over to the left-hand side, click on the little blue icon with the person with the plus sign. And from here, when I click on that, I'm now going to go with the transactional parties. The transaction parties are the people that are typed in on the contract, you and your clients. When I now select the signers that are going to sign. Now, this is what I love about the cover sheet. If you have the cover sheet, page 1 of the cover sheet requires at least a first name, last name, and email address. You don't have to fill in everything else on page 1, but at least your client's first name, last name, and their email address. If you fill it out there, not only is their name filled out on every contract, their first name and last name, but when you go to digitally sign, the first name, last name, and email address will automatically be filled in. If you do not use a cover sheet in a transaction, then only the first name and last name will be filled in here. Before you can select that person, you then need to click the email section to type in their email address. Now, if you're up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, which I know some of you in this room are, do you want to be typing anything extra at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning? Probably not. Type it on the cover sheet. That way you don't have to worry about doing it later on. With all three elements here, we can now select that signer to sign. As we select the signers, you'll notice that in the background, this puts them in order of selection. This order of selection indicates the order in which the email goes out in. Now, at this point, I've selected me and my signers. I hit close. Now, I can switch the order if I need to. Right now, I've got Donnie being first, meaning that they will get the email request first to sign before number 2 and number 3. Number 3 will not get the documents until number 1 and number 2 have signed, completed, and reviewed the documents. Now, if I've talked to Don and I've talked to Ivanka, and Ivanka says, hey, I can get to these documents in 5 minutes, whereas my husband Don won't get to these documents until 11 or 12 tonight, do I want Don to be first or second? I probably want him to be second. How I can switch the order, simply hover over top of the signer, click on the 4-way arrow just like so, and drag it above or below and let go. Now we've just switched the order of Ivanka and Don. Now, some of you in this room want to send it out to everyone all at once. You can do that as well. Simply click on the number, click on the little arrows next to the number, and now you can make everyone number 1. That means that everyone will get an email request at the same time to sign the documents. Now, I typically don't like this, especially if we've got signers at one email address. Sometimes spouses, the older couples, only have one email address amongst the both of them. This is where we need to be careful to make sure that we leave it in the order, because you don't want the one spouse signing as the other by mistake. Fortunately, in the state of California, without a formal power of attorney, spouses are not allowed to sign for each other. So it's important that you leave it in the order, especially if they are at one email address. So in this case, Don and Ivanka are at one email address. They do not have a formal power of attorney. So what I need to do is put them in order. So in this case, I'm now going to leave them in the order, indicating who's signing first, second, and third. Okay? Now, at this point, and I'm going to take the listing agent out by mistake. I meant to choose myself. At this point, after I switch the order around, I'm now going to hit next. Now, in Digital Ink, it asks you, would you like to add in some cybersecurity? Now, this will be the only time Digital Ink ever charges you, and that's typically $5 per signer for the transaction. And actually, it looks like they updated this to be unlimited signers for only $5 per transaction. So that's not too bad. So in this case, $10 for them to digitally sign the documents from this day forward. But I can tell you 9 times out of 10, you will not need to add this. In certain special cases like REOs or short sales, sometimes the lenders require special verification, but with all the regular transactions that you're probably going to be dealing with, 9 times out of 10, with all the tracking software that Digital Ink already does, all you'll need to do is just hit no thanks. A lot of times your lender will tell you if you need to do the special verification. In this case, because we don't have to add in the special added cybersecurity, we go to the most important step, stage 3, making sure that our documents have everything to do for our signers. Meaning, my signers have something to do in every document for them to sign and initial. Now, here are the pros and cons of what I like and dislike about Digital Ink. First thing that I like about Digital Ink is that the form takes up the full size of the screen. It's easier for us to read and go through. But what I dislike about Digital Ink is that when I get down to the bottom of the RPA in this example, I'm down at the bottom of the first form, or of the form itself. Unlike digital or DocuSign, if I get down to the bottom of this form, the other form automatically uploads, and then the next and the next and the next. So it's easier for me to look at the forms very quickly from start to finish. I have to come back up to the top and click on the down arrow next to the document to switch in between my documents. But about 90% of the forms in ZipForms already have the digital areas already placed. So it's really easy for me to tell in Digital Ink what areas already exist in the form, so I don't have to necessarily scroll through the form. And that is done with this box over here to the left. This big giant blue box. When I look at the big blue box, I'm going to look for the far left here, and I get to see what signers already have what tasks that are pre-existing in the form that I'm looking at. So I see here in the RPA that Donnie Trump already has the sign, initial, sign fields already placed. Same thing with buyer 2. To verify that, if I wanted to, scroll right down. And I see this is where Don and Ivanka are going to be signing already. They haven't signed it yet because I haven't sent it, but at least I get to see where they're already signing. So what I like about Digital Link is that I can quickly and easily go through my forms, like that PDF document. I see here that when I go to this document, that I see immediately that buyer 1 and buyer 2 and nothing underneath or in between. That means that this document has nothing to do for either one of my clients. So what do I need to do? I can scroll down on the document, and where they need to sign or initial, simply select the signer. Now I can choose a task by clicking, holding down with my mouse, and dragging and letting go into position. Now I've just added a signature area with a date box for buyer 1. Click and move the box, select the second signer, click, drag, and place for buyer 2. Just like so. So what I'm going to do here in Digital Link is go through all my forms that I'm signing this time, whether it be 2 documents, 1 document, or 15 documents, or in some cases 60, and make sure that every signer that's supposed to be signing has at least 1 task to do in each and every document. If you notice here in the PDF file, all we needed to do was add in where they needed to sign. So any listing agents that are here, if you get a PDF RPA, you can upload that PDF document into your transaction. And now all you need to do is place the initial and signature areas for your sellers on that RPA PDF. That way, now once you've done that and you hit send, the email request will go out to the first signer for them to digitally sign the document. Once all signers are done signing their documents, you will get an email that says the documents are complete, and in that email will be a zipped PDF file of all the signed documents. But in ZipForms, because it likes to keep everything all in one place now, within the body of the transaction itself, within the first 30 seconds of the last signer signing the contract, a folder is automatically created that says signed documents or Digital Link signatures completed on, and then the date. And in that folder will be the signed PDF files. Are there any questions on this? Well, if I haven't overwhelmed anybody, which is a good thing, let me give you my information again. I want to thank everybody for attending today's webinar. Sorry we went over by a few minutes here, but here's my information. You can feel free to email me anytime. My email is tony@ocar.org, or feel free to give me a call at 949-586-6800, extension 104. I hope everybody got to enjoy today's webinar, and I guess I will talk to you guys soon.